Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about a new solar project approved for federal land in western Arizona, and an ASU history professor says it's time to rethink the way American Indian history is considered. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The State House of Representatives is about to move on the budget and Medicaid expansion. Speaker Andy Tobin today ended weeks of inaction at the Capitol by assigning budget bills, including Medicaid expansion, to the House Appropriations Committee, with a vote in the full House expected as early as the end of the week. We'll have more on the story tomorrow in our legislative update with the Arizona Capitol Times. Tonight's Focus on Sustainability looks at a new large-scale solar power plant proposed for public land in western Arizona. The Quartzsite Solar Energy Project was one of 3 major renewable energy plans announced yesterday by the U.S. Interior Department. Here to tell us more about the Quartzsite project is Dennis Godfrey. He's from the Arizona office of the Bureau of Land Management. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So we got 3 of these projects, one in Nevada, I think 2 in Nevada.
2 in Nevada.
And 1 here in Arizona. Near Quartzsite, in Quartzsite, where are we talking about?
It's about 10 miles north of Quartzsite, right along the road there that heads north. Be able to see this project from the road in a few years.
What's out there now?
Very little. Desert land. Of course, there's differences in what's little and what isn't, and differences of opinion on that, but basically flat desert land.
How much power are we talking about regarding this plant?
This is a 100-megawatt project.
And that translates to how many homes?
Roughly 30,000.
Okay. Who builds these plants? Who will build this plant once it's up on, getting going here?
Well, the company by the name of Solar Reserve, which is out of Santa Monica, California, applied to the Bureau of Land Management for use of lands, and they are the owner of the technology and will be building the project.
And so this Santa Monica, it's their baby then, in other words. Who will they be selling the electricity to?
That is up to them. That's something that the Bureau of Land Management does not get involved with. We make the land available, and they will work out the deal. And to my knowledge, they do not have a buyer at this time.
So does that mean ground doesn't break until they get the buyer?
Most likely.
Yeah.
These are expensive propositions, and they would probably need a certainty that they're going to be able to sell the power.
Yeah, I know you're not in that particular business per se, but is there any indication how long that may take? What kind of delay we would see here?
Well, we have another project, Sonoran Solar, on Bureau of Land Management land near Buckeye, and that's been approved for about 1.5 years, and they still do not have a power purchase agreement. So, but it varies. I really can't say.
Yeah. As far as the technology is concerned, can you tell us about that? This power cell something tower, power tower or something?
Power tower, yes. This is an interesting technology that Solar Reserve has. They build an array or a large array of mirrors, heliostats they call them, that track the sun during the day, and they'll focus the sun's energy or heat on a spot on a tower at the top of a tower about 650 feet tall. This is be a large tower, and that's why I say you'll be able to see this from the road. You'll see it glow as mirrors are focused on it, and that power, that's actually heat, is used to heat molten salt, turn it into a liquid. That liquid is stored and then used to generate steam, which turns a standard steam turbine to generate electricity.
My goodness. And this technology is already in use around the world?
It has been used. I wouldn't say that it has extensive use, but there's a tower in Spain that is working. There was a demonstration and research project in the 90s in California that Solar Reserve has learned a lot from. And Solar Reserve has other projects under construction, one in Nevada right now that they hope to complete this year.
How much water is needed for something like this?
Under using a conventional steam turbine, you would expect that it would use quite a bit of water, but Solar Reserve and the Bureau of Land Management concluded early on that the best use of this resource would be to use a dry cool technology, meaning they use very, very little water compared. They will use about 200 acre-feet a year. If they were to use a combination of hybrid and dry, that would be about 3 times more than that, it's 600. If they were to do wet cooling, which is the most efficient and the least expensive, it would be up to about 1,500 acre-feet a year. So this is a fraction of the amount of water that would be needed, and we feel that's the responsible way to respond to the needs of the desert.
How were these particular lands, we won't talk about the ones in Nevada, but the outside Quartzsite here, how was that land chosen? What kind of input was involved?
Well, the company went looking for a site, and they measured and did some scientific research and considered what the natural resource conflicts might be, and said this looks like a good spot, and made application for it. They're the ones that applied and made a decision that this is where we want to put this project.
And as far as public input for that particular piece of land, how much goes into something like that?
The Bureau of Land Management, any time that federal lands are involved, we're looking for all the public input we can get. We held what we call scoping meetings where we encourage the public to respond, to tell us what is out there that we need to be looking at. And we feel like we've had a very successful scoping and research project from the public.
Environmental review, what kind of...
It's a long-term process. The federal government's involved. We want an environmental impact statement. This has been in the process for pretty close to 3 years now, where we've been studying what is there, what are the concerns, where are the cultural conflicts, what are the resource conflicts, what are the wildlife conflicts. And we've concluded that we're in a pretty good position on this project.
Indeed, it sounds as though this particular project was on the fast track and may still be on the fast track for approval. Is that accurate?
Well, it has now been approved. Yes, it's been in the past year, certainly.
Why was that a fast track?
Because it had progressed to the point where it was ready to move forward. The previous work had been done. We were satisfied with it. The Secretary of the Interior said, let's finish the work on this.
And you have, it sounds like 15 some odd more sites being looked at by the BLM overall. Does that sound pretty accurate?
That's about right. Yes, we have several in Arizona as well, or a few in Arizona that are progressing and moving along.
And so basically, I know utility scale projects in the right way and the right places. That seems to be the slogan.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
All right. Well, we'll hopefully they get this thing up and operational here relatively soon, so they can find some electricity to sell to. But good to have you here. Good information. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Along State Route 80 in southeast Arizona is the town of Tombstone. 2 miles west, at the end of a dusty road, stands a monument to its founder, prospector Ed Schieffelin. In 1878, Schieffelin sought riches in the untamed Mule Mountains, despite being warned that the only thing he'd find there was his tombstone. Schieffelin cheated death and discovered several rich silver strikes that launched a boom and established the town. By the 1880s, Tombstone was the county seat, filled with wild and colorful characters whose escapades were chronicled in what is now Arizona's oldest continuously published newspaper, the Tombstone Epitaph. The boom had ended by the mid-1890s. Over the following decades, Tombstone transformed itself into a town Ed Schieffelin wouldn't recognize by turning legends of its lurid past into tourist gold, and billing itself as the town too tough to die.
History can be viewed in different ways by different people, and that certainly is the case with American Indian history. In a new book, Call for Change, The Medicine Way of American Indian History, Ethos, and Reality, ASU professor Donald Fixico argues that the current discipline of Native American history is insensitive to and inconsistent with how American Indians view their past experiences. Here with us now to talk about his new book and a new class he will teach this fall is Donald Fixico. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Time to rethink American Indian history. What are we talking about here?
There have been actually over 30,000 books written about American Indians. And the operative word is about because it's written really kind of from the outside about Indian people. So here's a chance to kind of get inside of the communities of Native people, inside of their minds, and to explain how that they're culturally different, they make their decisions different, their values are different, and therefore they come up with different worldviews. But that's also saying that there's a Comanche logic, there's a Navajo logic, Seneca logic, they're all different, but let's look at history that way.
So you say the current discipline is insensitive to Indian views of history. Talk to us about that.
Well, with the books written about Native people, it's really kind of taking this Westernization approach towards history itself, the professional discipline, and saying, well, here are the facts. And here's what happened, and then that's what happened. And that really kind of disregards how that Native people think and their point of view and how that they see history.
Do you think that some of these historians just basically misunderstand American Indians?
Oh, very much so, because I can read a history book about American Indians, and like in the first few pages you can determine that. But you can also at the same time read the same few pages of a different book, and you can tell that scholar spent a lot of time with that Native group.
Give us an example maybe of misunderstanding that you've seen out there.
Oh, misunderstanding? Much of the history that is written probably before the late 1960s, because anthropologists, historians have written books about Native people, but the really kind of eye-opener was Dee Brown's book, In Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, because in that book about the American West, he says, in reading the introduction, he says to the reader, read the introduction facing east. And when you face east, you could see the miners coming towards you, the railroads, the soldiers, the settlers, everything like that.
So basically, it's Indian views and values mixed with what actually happened.
Yes.
When you teach your class, when you wrote the book, who are you writing this for? Who are you teaching to?
I'm writing it for everyone because we need to kind of learn to think different ways. And we need to, if we take on the most difficult questions and problems, well, how do you approach things differently? Because if we don't, then we will limit our thinking and not be able to tackle those difficult questions.
In the book you write about, I want to get to the medicine way in a second, but first natural democracy. How do you define natural democracy in the context of this book and in the context of what you're talking about?
Natural democracy is a term I used in about 1982 when I was talking about the Iroquois and how that they dealt with democracy and decision-making. And I remember giving that lecture way back then, but natural democracy, the way I apply it, is mutual respect for everything and not just human beings, but respect for rivers, mountains, flora, fauna, that they are in all of this because all of our relations, to look at history and to look at society in general and to only look at it in terms of human relations is only looking at a piece of the pie. And so we need to look at the entire society of life.
So looking at saying that everything should be mutually respected, you then move on to the medicine way of looking at history. Talk to us about that.
Okay. The medicine way is something that I grew up with. The Native people who are close to their traditions, and I think even indigenous people in different parts of the world would agree, that if you're close to your ways of life, then what you see is almost that everything has a potential energy. Everything, water, a rock, a windstorm, all of that has potential energy, but we refer to that as kind of the medicine way or the medicine power. Medicine power equals energy and how that's released. If you don't respect the water, then the water will come in terms of a flood or a raging river or something like that. So in the medicine way, it's a way of paying the respect for everything that has potential power. And that's what we do, we respect that.
So how would you then work the natural democracy in the medicine way?
Well, if everything has power, then we respect everything that is within the totality. And the totality has to be respected or else we'll cause our own doom like global warming. If we had respected perhaps the northern parts of this planet in a much better way and handled our natural resources in a much better way, we would not be in this forthcoming kind of doom that's going to happen with global warming.
So we've got mutual respect for everything. We have the medicine way in the way you approach everything. How does that work its way into the history of American Indians?
Well, the medicine way has always been there because it's the medicine way that Comanche people grow up with, Seneca people, Seminoles in Florida, myself growing up in Oklahoma. And so it's really kind of introducing this to the larger mainstream and to the rest of the world. But I found that in doing that, I had to construct theoretically a cultural bridge. So the cultural bridge enables someone, if they can understand what the medicine way is, they can cross this bridge and to get inside of the tribal communities and the way of native thinking, then cross that bridge back.
So when you talk again about the ethos and the reality of Native Americans, again, I want to get it back to the context of history. How does that change the way I would look, or someone else who would look at the history of any aspect of American Indian history? How would that change or make me see this differently, or literally change the reality of that history?
Well, it would change a lot, because if we can look back into the history, it's almost like looking at a different book altogether, looking at a different way of life. A good example is maybe World War II or maybe World War I. But if you go back to World War I and or II and look at how that the German people thought at that time about that, rather than a Western approach of American historians writing about that, then you don't get the German perspective. In this situation, you get the American Indian perspective and how that each of the individual nations dealt with history. And it's like, how did that happen? Why it happened? How come did I miss that? And so this new perspective, that's what I'm trying to suggest in this book.
But you talk about Iroquois logic and other tribal logic and how they can be different. How do you incorporate that into a general understanding of American Indian history? Because I would imagine between tribes there are great differences.
Oh, indeed. There's 566 federally recognized tribes today. Now, there has to be at least 566 different points of view. And if you add in the gender factor, men and women, then that's twice that amount. So this is really to kind of get on the other side of the equation of Indian-white relations. And once you're on the side of the equation, facing east, looking at the frontier, then it opens up. And as it opens up, then you see these different relationships. Take one group, like the Creeks or any tribe, and it's in a circle. But it has relationships with the white world, the Creeks with the Cherokees, but also the Creeks with the animal, the plant, the metaphysical. And it becomes more than just kind of a two-dimensional approach, but it becomes more spherical.
You write about the binary system of colonizer and colonized. How do you find common ground? I mean, are those the circles involved there as well?
Yes, but see, colonization is really only looking at the a native group or all native groups with the American mainstream. And so that's the binary. But if you take that same theoretical model of two relationships and you turn that around, then you see the Creeks with the Kiowa, the Creeks with the Seminoles, the Creeks. And any tribe can be in that middle, but we can't forget the Creeks' relationship with the plant world and the animal world and the metaphysical world, and maybe with the French and the Spanish.
So that relationship, if most folks look at history, they want to know what happened, and they want to know why it happened. Some want to make sure it doesn't happen again, but for the most part, it's a curiosity as to what happened before they may have been around. How does this particular discipline, this particular approach, alter what happened, why it happened?
Well, I hope, and this is my goal for the book, is to really make people think really hard about history, and in particular American Indian history and maybe indigenous history all around in different parts of the world. Because the indigenous point of view, say in New Zealand or in Australia or in the Siberia of Russia, there's a different story, a different interpretation. History is a matter of interpretations. But with the Western approach, we tend to negate or we nullify or we even forget those other kinds of history. By not writing about how those people think, then we use a large paintbrush and we kind of paint a way of history, and that's how it happens.
So you'll be teaching a new class on this fall, correct, here at ASU?
Well, yes, kind of using the basic structure of it. But this new class, American Indian Studies 191, is really a substitute for Arizona State University's 101. Now, it will be used in 3 different biographies, but these individuals, Peterson Zaw, Navajo Tribal Chairperson and President, Lori Alvord, the first Navajo female surgeon, graduate of Stanford Medical School, and also Charles Alexander Eastman. Dr. Eastman became a physician in 1890. So, how do these individuals, thinking in the medicine way, how did they survive going to medical school when they came from a different set of ideas and backgrounds and values?
Well, it's interesting stuff. I mean, it's an interesting read, and it's certainly a different way of looking at things. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure.
And Wednesday on Arizona Horizon, our weekly legislative update looks at new indications that the House is ready to move on the budget and Medicaid expansion. And with the weather heating up and drying out, we'll hear about Arizona's upcoming fire season. That's at 5:30 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
The Global Institute of Sustainability is the heart of ASU's sustainability initiatives, advancing research, education, and business practices for an urbanized world. Sustainability tips found at sustainability.asu.edu/TV.